Hi, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. This is the most important thing you can listen to today.
He's the one.
I have a dream.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I could do this all day.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Cinderella's story out of nowhere.
It's in the hole. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Capital Hacking begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the big show. John, Edwin. Hey, I'm Josh, but John, Edwin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And Josh, what a great show with Dave Cole. Quick background for those listening. Dave and I met and became friends when we were on vacation literally a year and a half ago in Portugal. My wife, Christine, and I, his wife, Molly, and him became friends. And little did I know, he's a super successful guy.
Super successful.
And Josh, I'll let you tell some of the story here.
Well, no, I thought you were going to talk about your favorite thing, this guy was the part of the launch of Transition prescription sunglass lenses. Yep.
Yes.
We all know them. This is the guy behind them. Such a great story. And
it's a great story because he was working with a very, very old company, 140 years old, PPG out of Pittsburgh, and they're a coating company. And they found how to do transition glasses by mistake.
Yeah, and so we're going to learn that because it's curious. They've touched all our lives. And then we're going to extract a few key lessons from mega business, entrepreneur business, and how it all cycles back and forth. So we're going to learn one crazy technique that I'm trying to figure out how to use in our business, John, where he teaches how Transition Lenses came up with a way to use distribution partnerships as a way to solidify long-term success. We got to learn that. And then he's going to reveal an incredibly insightful 3-step process to become a 142-year-old company. Step 1, grow to 142 years. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's going to give the 3 steps that he sees behind PPG, which stands for what? Pittsburgh Plate and Glass or something. But it's 142 years. It's almost as old as Renault. Next, we're going to be talking about Renault's secrets to success. But PPG, he's going to reveal how a company can grow that old. And spoiler alert, it's a lot like what we talk about with EOS. So you're going to love this.
Let's go.
I'm excited to meet Dave Cole with the whole world. We'd like the whole world to meet him, John.
Oh, yeah. So Dave, we're going to tell a little story in a couple minutes, but Dave, can you give us a little background on you, who you are, so our listeners can connect with you?
Yeah. My name's Dave Cole. I had a nearly 40-year career with PPG. It's a large, basically coatings and paint company, but we're in a lot of different businesses, glass, chemicals, and coatings as well. So, but I spent my career there, but I had a very unusual career within PPG because I got involved with an entrepreneurial startup, which ended up being Transition Lenses, those lenses that change when you go outside. I have my family. I have my wife Molly and 3 great kids that are scattered throughout the country in Atlanta and Tampa and New York, and 5 grandsons and a granddaughter. So yeah, it's things are good.
Yeah, thank you. So I have to tell this story. We were just talking about it. So not this past spring, but the spring before, my wife, Christine, and I took a trip. We wanted to check out Portugal, and we wanted to go on a kind of a guided trip. It was about 2 weeks, and there's a bus that takes, people around. And of course I sneak some bourbon on the bus and Dave Cole and Molly were across from me, and we didn't know them. Christine and I didn't know them, but of course I offer some bourbon, and so Dave and I started having bourbon on the bus, and
I'm a willing
and then we went out. You were a willing participant.
Right.
And Dave and Molly and me and Christine went out to lunch that day, and we hung out all day for the rest of the trip. It was almost, like I said, it was almost 2 weeks, and we hit it off, and it started a lifelong friendship. So it's awesome to have you, Dave. And it was interesting when we were in Portugal, there was a picture, like a poster on the exterior of a building, and it showed something about transitional glasses, and Dave said that hey, I brought them to the world. And then I started paying attention. I was like, oh, I got to have you on the Capital Hacking podcast. So here we are, it's pretty amazing. So, and once we got talking about transitional glasses, Dave, tell us about how did all this come about?
Hey guys, it's John Vroman, founder of Front Row Dads, and you're listening to Capital Hacking, the best investment you'll make today.
Well, it was, as I had a very interesting career, like I said, with PPG. PPG very much in the chemical coating space. But I ended up in the late 80s into a chemical business, but it was a specialty chemical business. PPG, by accident, quite honestly, it was by accident, developed and invented the material that became synonymous with plastic eyeglass lenses. Everything else prior to that was glass, from Benjamin Franklin on. So everything was glass. And then PPG invented this product, and it was a perfect material for plastic eyewear. Well, plastic eyewear became, everybody was wearing plastic, not glass, except for one area, which was the lenses that changed when you went outside. And there was a product from Corning called Photogray, which was introduced in the 60s. And everybody who wore photochromic lenses was wearing Photogray. And everybody said, well, if PPG could ever develop the chemistry to get that to change, plastic lenses to change, it would be fantastic. So I got into the development project, but it was already going on from a chemical standpoint. The actual scientists were doing the work for 8-9 years prior to me getting there. And we had something, so we started doing development work within PPG. Then we had to make a decision. Once we thought we had something, what are we going to do with it? So the decision, through a lot of different, really, I think these are the core elements of it. We made some critical strategic decisions about how we would go to market. Here's a chemical company, didn't really know what to do. Are we just going to sell chemical, or are we going to make eyeglass lenses? What are we going to do? So I actually had some very strong opinions because I was involved in, one of the only ones that was involved in the industry at the time, because they were my customers in the chemical side of it. And so what we ended up doing was we made a decision, we're going to make lenses. And then we made a decision to joint venture because we needed some help. So we joint ventured with the largest lens manufacturer in the world. It's Essilor. That company's now Essilor-Luxottica. Essilor-Luxottica, you may not know them, but it's brands like Verilux, but Luxottica owns Ray-Ban, they own Oakley, they own LensCrafters, they own Pearl. That company has become just massive. And Essilor's a French company. We joint ventured with them. PPG had 51% share. So PPG had to make a decision. Well, we'll send down a few people to get this company started. And I say down, we went to Florida. And in 1990, we signed that joint venture. We introduced the company in November of 1990. There were only 4 of us. Half knew what we were doing. We just knew we had something pretty special in terms of a product and a concept on how we might take it to market. Through a lot of challenges, I will say it wasn't easy, especially the first couple of years, but the work was crazy. And then when it took off, it really took off. There's a lot of depth within that, but that's how I got involved, because it was something that I always sort of had an entrepreneurial risk-taking approach to how I wanted to do things. And PPG is a very conservative, really well-run, well-operated company, but very conservative in their approach. So sometimes you want to go faster, you want to take some more risks. And so I really wanted to do this. We were in Pittsburgh at the time. My wife thought, oh, well, that was home. My wife thought, oh, we'll stay in Pittsburgh, after we had already moved 4 times in 6 years. And I said, no, I want to go to Florida. I want to start this company. And quite honestly, Transitions today is one of the leading lens brands in the world. It's global. We have plants throughout the world, but I haven't been involved in the business now for over 10 years, except for I keep getting contacted by different people.
Yeah, I know, Josh, you're ready to roll. Just one quick question. I haven't heard of any other company like Transitions where you can walk outside and it turns into sunglasses and your prescription glasses then turn back into regular glasses when you walk inside. What does even the competition look like? Because I haven't heard of it.
So we were the first. We were the first to do it in, like I said, in plastic. So initially, our technology, I would say, was inferior to what the glass product was from Corning. The superiority was it was in plastic, but the market really took a while to adapt to it. And then when we were through the 90s, I mean, we were growing at exponential rates. And when we finally took hold in really 1992, we were growing at rates of like 20-30% a month. It was hard to keep up with. We were making mistakes, but we were having a blast doing it and expanding, quite honestly, like crazy. Competitors then started finding ways to copy. We had old patents that had run out. They started doing that. So there are competitive products, but some of the beauty of it is we really, in that time, made a core decision to involve everyone in the industry. So they were already involved with us, like all these different lens manufacturers, all these other partners. They didn't have a reason necessarily to go compete with us because we were sharing in the wealth and the growth.
Oh, okay. I think that's one of those big business lessons that us entrepreneurs listening to the show, first generation business builders and whatever. Could you dissect what you just said? Because that almost seems like you created a moat by incentivizing your vendors or your supplier, your distributors in some way with the upside of your business. That's the way I heard it. Would you mind digging in on that and see what we can learn from you?
Yes. And in fact, it was one of the things that I was most, when I was working in PPG in the chemical side of this project, when they were talking about, the first inclination is we want to own it. We're the only ones who have the technology and we're going to take it to market and we're going to be the ones. And what I was passionate about, I will never forget this day because I went to a vice president of the company and I started explaining. He said, I don't understand, because he was in more of the main chemical side of the business. So I got on this whiteboard and I started drawing it up and all these different, the way the distribution worked. And I said, if we either own it, all these companies that have all these relationships are going to do everything they can to find other chemical companies to compete with us. Or if we just work with one of them, one manufacturer, like our joint venture partner, if we only worked with them, then everybody else is going to try to compete with us and immediately go to any other chemical company that's in this type of business and start to do the work. I go, why don't we set up where we just jointly manufacture, sort of OEM manufacture for all the manufacturers? Then we can use their distribution systems and all their designs. So when you start to understand the way the market works, if you involve them, now whatever an optician wants, whatever design they want, whatever material they want, whatever manufacturer they prefer to work with, they can get transitions. And I was drawing this out in this whiteboard and he said, well, you need to take this to the executive committee. And it ended up being a core part of the decision of how we went to market, which wasn't easy, but it created an unbelievable moat for us because we had a lot of supporters and we had to make sure that they were profitable and did well if we did well. That became a core part of it.
Okay, so let's use some brand name. I mean, generically, it's like you went to Oakley. I know they're all owned by the same group now. You said Oakley, and you also went to other great brands that make glasses, and you let them put your lens in their frames. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, but there are yes, but they're not they're not really the sunglass brands that you would know. So
Right.
They're the ones that opticians and optometrists know. You probably have heard of Verilux. Have you heard? Verilux is it's a design where you can read, but you can see far, but it doesn't have a line. It's a lineless bifocal. That's a big brand. You have other brands that are similar to that in the industry. You also have material brands. Featherweights was one that was known by lens crafters. That's a material brand. It's polycarbonate. You want to participate across all of that. So an optician doesn't need to think, well, can I get transitions in that or can't I?
It's such a smart business move, but it feels like I'm thinking about how you go to market with that. Now, at first you said this group called Transition. That was the name of the entity? The joint venture was called
Transitions
Transitions?
Optical, yes. Yes.
And in that model, it was 4 of you that left PPG and joined that subsidiary.
That's correct.
How big did it get before you actually had a product to go to market? How many people helped?
So by that time, we had about 300 people by the time we went to market.
Okay.
We did it I will tell you, there was nearly $40 million invested in very short period of time. And we had about 350 people. The intent didn't end up exactly like we anticipated. We anticipated our joint venture partner would take the ownership of selling things downstream. And we would do the research, the manufacturing, and we would work with other manufacturers who are their competitors to get their designs and their materials. And that's what our job would be, but they would do the downstream selling. It didn't quite work out that way, so we had to take a lot more ownership. And it really had to do with they had a lot of things on their plate, and they didn't have the conviction that when things got into crisis mode, they didn't have the conviction that we did to survive.
Hi, this is Melanie McCallan. Josh and I are just so grateful for the many investors who have already joined us at Accountable Equity. Accountable Equity is so much more than a capital group. It's really a community of accredited investors that want to learn and grow together. I just want to personally invite you, if you want to find out more about this type of investment and see if it's right for you and your family, please visit us at accountableequity.com.
Hey, it's Hal Elrod, author of The Miracle Morning, and you're listening to Capital Hacking. Enjoy.
A lot of the people listening today do operate businesses or placing investment capital in smaller groups. I'm trying to, what you're explaining happens at every level. Some, concept, how to go to market, research and development sounds like something the big guys do, but on some level, we're in the middle of doing it right now in our hospitality brand, where we're going to be getting into health and wholeness and wellness. And I'm like, okay, how do I get to that business? Well, I'm going to probably incorporate others that are already in that business, and then we're going to create some kind of strategy. So things like this happen all the time. Let's pretend it, on a much smaller level, what I'm describing is somewhat similar to Transitions joint venture. You have a vision up front. You have a statement of purpose. You open up this joint venture. Sounds like PPG funded a lot of the R&D. So there's money involved. There's some kind of ratio of ownership and rules and responsibilities, operating agreements.
That's right.
When it starts to go sideways, like you mentioned briefly, they were more distracted with other projects. Do you go back and show that the operating agreement now has to change? Or how do you move through that? And what advice could you give to us in business when things don't go the way you want in a joint venture? Did you end up keeping the joint venture? Did you buy them out? Like, what kind of things can we learn from that?
So we were very committed to the joint venture. In fact, I think both of the CEOs, that was really the reason the joint venture hung together. The CEO within Essilor, Xavier Fontenay, was a brilliant man, French, brilliant man, and very committed to transitions. I think he had the same vision we did, but he had a very difficult time getting their downstream side to do what we really needed them to do. And I think he saw it. So we first really started with the board, which was, this needs to occur. If this can't happen, if Essilor in their responsibility can't commit to do it, we'll do it. We'll have to build the organization to do it, but we'll do it. We have to do it. And I think that because of the financial situation, and we were burning cash. In 1991, we went through a lot of cash, and we were going through it very fast. It was a little more painful for Essilor. They were a smaller company than PPG at the time. And I think they were open to us saying, we'll do it. So that was when, I know it wasn't just me, it was a couple of other people and myself. We started getting out into the market, learning the core players in the market and determining what needed to happen. We came back and we said, this is what has to happen, and this is what we will do. And we got the CEO's approval of Essilor, and that was enough for PPG to say, do it, and the board to say, do it. I don't think that within Essilor, the people underneath wanted us to do that, because we were infringing on their territory with their customers. And so it created a lot of tension, but it didn't matter because we started to become very successful. And then it didn't matter. It was too late. So
let's enter into there's two
Yeah.
big philosophical things I'd love to enter into that first victory, Dave. All right. So, because there's R&D that creates a scientific discovery, or like a great, in anybody's business, this is the day where you guys sit around the table, you brainstorm, and then you do the math. You're like, this is going to work great. This is a great idea. That's like what R&D, then you get this delightful product. But that's a long time before that makes you money. And so you're in that grind of burning cash.
Yes.
So what was the first major success that showed income or a contract?
So
what was that like?
We were starting to get business. And I think that I would say two major things happened. We introduced what I would say a first generation of technology, right? Like I said, it wasn't as good as what was already available in glass. So they were excited. The market was excited that something was coming in plastic, but they were disappointed in the performance. When we got into crisis mode and we started really going out into the market downstream, not at the manufacturer level, now into the optical business, laboratories and opticians and optometrists. And we started creating these relationships and giving resources and educating, probably more than they ever had anticipated or even seen in the industry before. We just were going at it hard and very creatively. But at the same time, we accelerated the next generation of product. So we had been out for a little over a year and a half, and we just made the old product totally obsolete, introduced our second generation. And I always believe there's a relative value, right? So everything is relative. Our product was good. It wasn't fantastic, but it looked great in comparison to our first product. And the market, by that point, they wanted us to succeed. I don't know. They just liked our organization and the way we were approaching it. They wanted us to succeed. And when we introduced the next generation of product, they go, oh, this is much better. And then we couldn't slow it down. It got momentum, and then everybody wanted to be involved. So, and that was about the middle of 90. And then it was just mayhem from there till probably like 99. It was pretty much mayhem.
John, I want to let you go unless you let me. I have a couple more. But go ahead.
Yeah. Just real quick though, because we're talking about different generations of the product. So, Dave, I wanted to ask you about how you dealt with temperature, right? Because everybody I know that has prescription glasses wears transitions. Every single person I know.
Good for them.
Big thank you, Dave. But in your first generation, was it able to, like, let's say if it's cold out or if it's humid out, like how quickly did the transition from the first generation to the second generation?
So they became probably 3 times faster, and they got about 20% darker when it was high temperature. When it gets high temperature, it fights between going dark and getting clear. Heat is the energy that makes it go clear. UV is the energy that makes it go dark. So
amazing.
If you're out and you're in the sun and UV hits it, a molecule opens up. And then in the absence of UV, the energy that creates it to shut is heat. So the way I describe it is like when it's high UV and it's hot out, they're hyperactive. So you get millions and millions of molecules, some open and the next one close and then open, close. So you have to kind of change that rate. And all it's done, they just recently introduced what they call Gen S. That's the 8th generation of product. And that was our thing. Always get better. Don't change the pricing, but always get better. And so our competition was constantly chasing us. Every time they thought they had something that they could introduce that they worked 5 years on, we were introducing a new generation of product about every 2.5 years. Cost us millions of dollars to do because we had to obsolete what was already in inventory. But we knew it was critical for us. So we just kept, and now the product that's out there is very fast, much faster than it was before, very clear inside and dark when you go outside. So it's really fantastic stuff.
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms, host of the Real Estate Guys radio program. And when you're not listening to our show, make sure you're tuned to Capital Hacking. You're going to dig it.
I have a couple other philosophical type questions because, obviously not many of us are in the lens business, but I think what you described was paramount to every business. And, what was the role you ended up holding as a quick aside here? What was the role you were called at Transitions?
So, for a long time, for a while in my career, I was what they called the managing director or general manager
Okay.
of,
Yeah.
and then, and I had the operation side of it. I did have the commercial side of it within all of the Americas and Australia, New Zealand. And then we set up Europe and Asia Pacific differently. Then I became the president of the company. So I reported to a board of directors that had 4 from PPG and 3 from Essilor. And I was the president of the company until PPG sold their 51% share in 2014. So that's what led me back into the paint industry, the coatings industry.
Well, that's when you sold. By the way, did Essilor sell? Was it like a tag along sale?
No, Essilor bought it.
There you go. Okay, well, that's smart.
But that goes to what I said before. When we took control in 1991, it changed the whole fundamentals of the business, and we became very big. Like we almost became as important to the industry as Essilor was. The previous CEO who really supported it was okay with that. The new CEO didn't like the control PPG had, we didn't really want us to have that much control and influence into the marketplace. So it sort of created this effort toward sort of unfolding the venture, much to my.
Well, there's so many more, we're in our final show segment here almost, but I just got to ask this question because so many of us talk about doing things like going from a young business to a growing business to a scaling business. And we talk about things like business coaching, getting strategists to help you do EOS or entrepreneurial operating systems to mimic what big companies do. But one of the big things that we always start with in our companies and everybody that we coach with or that coaches people like us, they say you got to set a vision and a mission. So what about PPG, a 100-year-old company approximately, has made it enduring? Kind of like Jim Collins, Dave. You know what I mean? What made PPG do well for so long?
PPG's greatest strengths and the reason they endure is a great question. The way I look at it is a couple of core principles that they have. Number one, they will do what it takes to take care of that customer. Number two, they are as financially disciplined a company as I've ever seen. They, not risk-taking, but very financially disciplined in what they do. And then operationally, they focus on being excellent. So those aren't flashy things, but they're enduring things. And
they are.
That's PPG in a nutshell to me. I've been in different businesses. It's the way they operate financially. It's a conglomerate. It's a $25 billion market cap business. 18 billion in sales with facilities all over. They close in 4 days. Every month they close in 4 days.
Wow.
With probably thousands of different facilities around the world. And it's just the way they operate. So they're exceptional at it. Leads me to one thing that I think is probably from my side, the most impactful thing for me. It was wild and it was fun during the crazy years of the 90s until about 99. We started to hit a wall. We're over $100 million in sales, happened very fast. You built plants around the world. You have offices. We weren't sophisticated though. We were running like an independent entrepreneurial company. I was working 18 hours a day, doing a lot of other people's work. That wasn't enduring. We were going to burn ourselves out and we were starting to make mistakes. Financially, great, but it was slowing down. It was getting worse. Big turn. We got some help to how do we get the organization right? What do I need to do to be a better leader and not be the person that did it, but be the leader that I needed to be? The biggest change that happened to me, that's why I could go in later on and run big coatings businesses that I didn't know anything about. And there are many, many lessons in that. But the number one thing is make sure you have really good people and hold them accountable once they know what they need to do. Get core done. They know what they need to do, and you hold them accountable, and you have talented people. It works.
And Dave, this has been gold. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, if our listeners want to follow up with you, I know you don't have your own business, and people keep calling you up to do more stuff, and you're staying busy. But is there maybe an email you can share if our listeners want to follow up with question?
Sure. Yeah, my email is djc0425@gmail.
That's great.
Yeah. So they could contact me. That's how people have found me. So, and it's been good.
What a pleasure, buddy. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers.
Damn straight. We just got
buddy.
We got to the end of another great show. And everyone listening right now, you're the family and friends. Thanks for staying till the end.
That was so fun. And hey, hit the like, hit subscribe. We're here to serve you guys. That's why we're doing this show. Josh is not paying me. I'm doing this off of my quote unquote sweat equity because we want to make a difference in your life. And then that ripple effect will continue to touch the world.
Hey, amen, brother. Please check us out on capitalhacking.com, all the social media threads. And yes, I know you've probably already sent this episode to one of your best friends. Thank you. We love you. Just go right into your iPhone, hit the plus symbol. We'll talk to you later. See you next week.
Share.